Good morning, everyone. Let's start the day with giving charity. Here we are. Tzedakah Tatzil Mimovet. Tzedakah will bring the future redemption. Now we are learning a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1967. And in this speech, the Rebbe explains a sentence in the Torah, which is explained by Rashi. And the Rebbe is talking about Rashi's explanation. And the sentence says that God will, a promise, it's a prophecy, God will return and gather up all the Jewish people. He'll gather up all the Jewish people and he'll bring them to the land of Israel. Okay. So here, let's look at the sentence. Just look at the sentence for 1 minute and see what it says. It says, Vashav Hashem, that God will return all of your exiles and have mercy, and he will gather you from all the people that you are scattered over there. That's what the sentence says, right? This is the commentary of Rashi. Let's just go to the continuation of the sentence. It's very interesting. Continuation says, even if you are scattered to the ends of the heavens, there's all these different religions and philosophies and things like that. No matter how far away you are, Misham Yekabetzcha, from there, you will be gathered. God will gather, and from there, he will take you. So all of these Jews, even in the, no matter how far away they are, what is it, Spinoza or Trotsky or someplace, these people are just really, including also, the founder of Christianity. He's also one of them. That's also scattered. God will gather all of them together, all the Jews together, and bring them to the land. Simple meaning. That's what it means, promise. But Rashi explains this a little bit differently. Rashi explains that according to the letters, the words, how they are, there seems to be a little bit of sort of, how do you say, improper grammar over here. And it comes to imply, Rashi knows what he's talking about, that God himself will return. The word et also means with your exiles. And Rashi even says more, that God is suffering in exile with the Jewish people. And Rashi says, and therefore God has to write for himself. He declared for himself, like made a decree, a document, that a certain time he's going to go out of exile with the Jews. And he will have mercy, and he will gather you all together from all of the nations that you are scattered. And Rashi says this means he will gather the Jews one at a time. God, your God. That's why he says God, your God. He repeats God, your God again. Hashem Elokecha, God, your God, to say to each and every Jew individually. And then Rashi says, and the same thing God does by the other nations also. He gathered them together, the nations that were supposed to be in their countries and that were kicked out, evicted by Sancherib or whatever, that God will bring them also back. Okay, so the Rebbe comments on this. How can it possibly be? Why does Rashi have to add all of these seemingly unnecessary things? Just leave the sentence alone. It's how do you say, it's novel, sufficiently novel as it is, that God's going to bring all the Jews back. That's amazing. And he's going to gather all the Jews from wherever they are, right? That's fantastic. What does he have to add this thing that God is with the Jews and God is suffering with the Jews? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. God is suffering with the Jews. He's with the Jews. He's imprisoned with the Jews. What does it mean? And he's going to take each one out, each one by their hand, and he's going to lead them out. And he did it with the other nations and all. Why does he have to say this? So that's what the Rebbe is explaining. That's what the Rebbe is explaining. And basically what the Rebbe is telling us, I'm just giving a summary of what we had up to now, that God is much more human than we can possibly imagine. God. What do you mean he's much more human? God, of course, is not human. Worshipping a human being is forbidden. According to Judaism, that's idolatry. You can't worship any form, any human being, anything, any angel. Can't worship only the creator of the universe that took the Jews out of Egypt. That's the only God you can worship. That only all mankind. All mankind. So first of all, we see that God did take the Jews out of Egypt. So, but you can say, listen, he did it because he just, that's things that, it's a hobby. It's a hobby. God likes to do things, show his power, or it's a sport, right? God is the weightlifter, people lift weights, do things like that. So, we're made in God's image. So, there's weightlifters in this world. Maybe God's like a weightlifter, here's this big weight and he lifts it up, he can do a bench press, 500 pounds, something like that. So the same thing, but God is outside. He's outside. Or maybe we can say, no, maybe it's like a father with a son, that a father, he does everything he can to get his son out because he suffers with his son together. So the Rebbe said, yeah, you can see all those things, but that's not what's implied over here. What's implied over here is that God himself, who knows what this means? Listen, if it says in the Torah that the Jews are the son of God, right? The son of God. And we know God did not have a wife, that he gave birth to a son. So what does it mean we're the son of God? It means we have the same connection, closeness to God, a unique closeness as a son has to a father. Son has to a father. It says, Rebbe, that's just an example. Here he's saying that it's infinitely closer than that. That God, not only does he empathize or does he identify or does he, what is it, with the Jewish people, sympathize, but even more, God himself is in exile. And the Rebbe says even more, as long as there's one Jew left in exile, God, so to speak, is stuck. He's stuck in exile. It says that God declared a time that he's going to go out. So it's automatic whether the Jews do tshuva or they don't do tshuva. It says, therefore, God has to hurry up. And that's what we're saying over here. God has to hurry up and says, that's what's called hashgacha pratit. That's what's called hashgacha pratit. That God is involved in pratit, in every single detail in the world. Therefore, when we're talking about that God will so essentially what we're saying is the God of the Jews is infinitely more involved in the world than we can possibly imagine. What's going on? There we go. It doesn't work. Okay. There we go. Than we can possibly imagine. And that's exactly the problem with idolatry. That's exactly the idolatry problem. That you say, I have to pray to this person. This person is going to help me. This person is not a person. He's a spirit. He's the son of God. He's God's brother, his uncle, is whatever it is. But he's going to help me because God is too far away. That's idolatry. That's idolatry. Idolatry means that God is either far away or God doesn't care. And therefore, I have to pray to something else that's closer to me. That's idolatry. And Judaism says it's forbidden for the whole world, not just for Jews. It's forbidden for the whole world. And here we're saying not only that, but God, not only did God just make up a rule, he's just like a dictator. And he says, you can only bow down to me. It says the whole thing with Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel, that you can only bow down to the king. And they caught Daniel that he was praying to God. Maybe it's the same thing. God just made a law. Don't ask questions, and you can only pray to me. That's what. So here we're saying no, because God really cares. God really cares. He didn't create us just as a mechanical exercise. That God is creating us, and he's creating us from love. And he's saying also the non-Jews also. God redeems them also. But the Jews is special. So therefore, when it says, we're talking about Shav, Adaita B'Shavta, it says, when we're talking about that God returns, or the God says, I will return. What this indicates is a pula, in Velcha as his nikr, you can see in a revealed way that God, he is the one that is taking the Jews out of exile. God personally. Therefore, there's a difference between how God acts with the Jews and with the non-Jews. The Shavti b'nei Ammon, it says that God also will return and he will benefit and gather together the non-Jews to their places also. This is Blois b'nogia the Klolos. And this is just regarding to the general nation. The general nation. Even if there's 2, 3 people, whatever, that makes the Japanese nation. That makes it could be 1 million people, it could be, but it's in general. Which is not the case by the Jews. By the Jews is dar, shav, oich b'nogea, to yeder eden bezunder. Every single Jew individually. It won't be like it was when they left Egypt. There were 4/5 of the Jews. They didn't want to go out. It says 4/5 of the Jews, chamushim yatzu, only 1/5 left Egypt. He says in the future it won't be that way. It won't depend on what a Jew wants or what he doesn't want. Even if a Jew doesn't want to have anything to do with Judaism, nothing whatsoever, he's far away, right? So God will say, okay, maybe you're not Jewish. What are you talking about? I'm not Jewish. I'm just as Jewish as you are. See, it's important to you. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so that's something that's really important. Judaism, there's nothing else in your life that you hate it and you want nothing to do with it, but nevertheless you identify with it, right? Excuse me. That you identify with it. Judaism, a thing that Jews have, there's Jews that have not been in Israel 2,000 years, their parents, their grandparents, great-grandparents, they haven't been in Israel 2,000 years, and they don't do Torah, they don't commandments, and they're still Jews. So God say that little point that's your true identity. That little thing over there that you think is not really you and that you hate, you can't stand it, etc. And you hate Judaism, you hate everything, but that's your true identity. That's who you are. And God will take every single Jew and he'll expand that true identity to the point where every single Jew, by Eder Yidden, because every Jew individually is God, is not called just God, he's called God, your God, our God, Elokecha, your God individually, Lashon Yachid. When God gave the Torah, the Ten Commandments, he said, the first of the Ten Commandments is, I am God, your God, that took you out of Egypt. I am God, your God. And it says your God in singular. In Hebrew, there's singular and plural. The word your, singular is Elokecha, yours, and chem is plural. So because I am God, Elokechem, plural, but it doesn't say that. It says, I am God, your God, singular. In English, it doesn't come out. Every single God, Oches biyado mamish, God will hold the hand of every single Jew, and he will gather them together. Echad achad ben Israel. It's a sentence in Isaiah. By Yidden, by Jews, is the hashkacha pratis. There is a individual, how do you say, the care and direction. God is with every single Jew, alamol, everywhere. Oich bizman galus, even in the time of and alamol, all the time. I'm sorry, in every time, even in the time of exile. Oh, well, we can see that the Jewish people are still here. It doesn't make any sense, right? You have a whole nation of people that haven't been in their country for 2,000 years, and they still know that they're Jews, right? How do they know that they're Jews? Well, you could say because of Torah and the commandments, but they only got punished and tortured because of this Torah and commandments business, right? They're holding the Torah commandments, and they get killed and they get murdered, and they keep holding on to their Jewish identity. As far as I know, the first time that Jews really decided to change their identity, make a new identity, not to just leave a few commandments or something like that, like Reform Judaism or something like that, to negate all the commandments. To say a Jew is something different than God's people is Zionism. That's the first time. But before that, there was no such thing. Every Jew knew that there was God. Every Jew knew that God chose the Jewish people. There were some Jews that wanted to leave it. They wanted to say, I'm just not a Jew anymore, right? They converted, they changed their religion, whatever, in order to get accepted by the non-Jews. But they knew they were Jews. They knew they were Jews. Zionism was the first time, and it was totally did not succeed in this, to say a Jew has nothing to do with God. It's nothing to do with God, nothing to do. Jew is a nationality, like every other. That's the first time that it happened. But the fact of the matter is even a Jew like that, no matter how far away he is or how far away he tries to make everybody, nevertheless, by every single Jew is not just his Jewish identity, but also his Jewish connection that God has to him. It could be he doesn't have any connection at all, but God is connected to every single Jew. By Jews as hashkacha pratis, everything is directed everywhere, all the time, even in the time of exile. But then we have to come to thinking deeply in our mind to overcome the darkness of exile, which is not the case in the time of the Holy Temple and the time of the Geula. But I mean, of course, the example was the 6-Day War. 6-Day War happened. The whole world was on their feet. Judaism, God is with the Jews, they're God's people. And the Israeli government said, nah, don't get excited. We just have really good pilots, and we have good pilot systems, and we did this, and it was a lot of luck, and a lot of bravery, What about God? No, as a God, we had luck on our side, and we had the technology on our side, and we had bravery on our side, and we had good talents on our side. What about God on our side? No, that's for maybe a song, but not for Jews. That's what the Jewish people. Nevertheless, so in order to see that it was really a miracle from God, you had to think, which is not the case in the time of the Holy Temple, and also it won't be that in the case of the redemption. When God redeems the Jews, every single Jew will see and understand that God did not just do a general miracle for all of the Jewish people. He did an individual miracle for each and every Jew. And every Jew will feel that the real reality in the world is the Creator that took us out of Egypt. Which therefore is Be'inyan Agula, the whole idea of the future redemption. Next page. Eh, future redemption. All right, that's what Rashi is hinting at. It doesn't want to get bigger. Why not? Why doesn't it want to get bigger? Huh? Why? What did I do wrong? All right. Therefore, it says that God grabs the hand of every Jew, biyado mamish. That's what Rashi says, that God will grab a hold of each and every Jew's hand, mamish, really. In other words, in a revealed way. That's what mamish means. Ayin kan helam, without any concealment. Over dusvas b'zman agalus, that's which in the time of the exile, of the lo yarpecha, God will not, how do you say, release you. It won't let you go. Is thus biyadav stam. It says in the time of the exile, God will not let you go. He won't. That's general. That's in the time of exile. God is always with the Jews. But in the time of the redemption, geula, it says it will be, God will be revealed in mamash. It says really. Why doesn't this get bigger? Let's try to go back to the previous page. See here, it says you can get bigger. And now we're going to do it again. Ready? Yeah. Yeah. See, big. And does this is oich the diuk. That's why the Rashi adds the word mamash, really. Well, oches, it says that God will grab onto the hand, a malubash in levushi ateva, in nature, God will hold on to our natural, real, physical hand, is the oich by bnei amon. This is also by the non-Jews. But Rashi adds on mamash. He will gather together all of the people. He'll do it with the other nations also. But by the Jews, it's mamash. Let's just go to the Rashi over here for 1 second and see. See, here's our sentence, Shav Hashem Elokecha. And here is Rashi. It says, Oches biyadav mamash. He will grab onto the hand of every Jew, really, each and every person, wherever they are. Like it says, Ata taluktu echad achad bnei Israel. I will gather I will gather up, God will gather up one at a time. One at a time. Oh. And it'll be a way that's revealed. It won't be any mistakes. We'll be able to see, obviously, that there is a God that took the Jews out of Egypt, and that this God really cares, and he never really left us, and he really cares about the Jews, and he cares about all humanity. But everyone will see it and feel it. It will be, what is it? Incontrovertible. Is a word like that? Huh? Evidence. It'll be undeniable. Everyone will understand that God really does exist, not just to bring us to the world to come, and that God really cares about us, and even more, that God is suffering with the Jewish people as long as there's even one left in exile. Now here's the wine of the Torah, the inside. Alpia, now according to what we said, is not al shver. Nevertheless, we are still left with a question. Vibal because over here. Vibal because as Bayam Kibbutz, when God gathers the exiles of the Jews, is Lamaila Nogea Yeder, and it's relevant to every single Jew individually, is Dach Verstandig, it's understood as Biz, der letzter Yid, until the last Jew is redeemed. Well, if so, God is found in exile. So if God is found in exile, so automatically ver doch weiter the shaila. If so, we are asked the question. 1 second, we said that God, he set a time for redemption for himself, and now we're saying that it depends on the Jews being redeemed. There's Jews that won't want to have anything to do with this redemption. The guy's going to have to show each one's miracles via Zoe Vetter Eberster. How can God redeem the Jews that he holds on to each and every one of them in the time that Ochas Biyado Mamish, he's actually holding on to every hand? They're Erster Yidden, the first Jew, for Roisnem and Im, from Galus Bof and Shav Hashem at Shavuot. How can it possibly be that God will return with every Jew if he has to be the one that's returning the Jews? So either God is totally outside of the exile and he's grabbing the Jews one at a time, and the Rebbe says, no, that's not so, that God is in the exile. So if he's in the exile, that means that when he pulls the first Jew out, he doesn't go out with him. How can it be shav et shavutcha, that God will go out with you? Gater dacha rois zusammen mit him from Galus. How can it be that God goes out with this first Jew that he takes out of exile, that God goes with him? It can't be. It says that as long as one Jew is left, that God cannot go out. God goes out with the last Jew, not the first Jew. And here we're saying that God goes out with every Jew. How does it work out? Says the Rebbe, Muslim Zogam, we have to say, as the Medrigo state, that what it says that God grabs the hand of every Jew. This is just a limited revelation of God in an individual way. Versus verbunden, which is to be divided. For instance, at Mount Sinai, the Jews got a revelation, all of them at one time, and it was too much. Nobody digested it. 40 days later, they worshiped the golden calf. It didn't have a permanent effect on their hearts, on their essence. That's what it was in Mount Sinai. But the revelation was a true, powerful revelation. It's just that people couldn't take it. In the future, says the Rebbe, that God will tone down the revelation according to each and every person. Kiviyachol, so to speak, for every single Jew individually. And the Rebbe, and therefore, is Shaykh as the horror, this little ray of godliness will be connected with them, pratias with that individual Jew. The air is ochas biyado, that God grabs his hand. A zoloroiscan, that he can go out from exile. So in other words, God remains in exile, so to speak, as we're talking. So, I mean, obviously the only way to sort of make sense of this is you have to sort of make a picture in your mind of what exactly God is that he's holding on to people's hands. So he's like this big sort of huge, fat angel or something like that, that's just like infinitely big. And he has a hand, how does this exactly work? So the answer is that we have no idea, but it's true. We're talking about God here. So on one hand, we have absolutely no idea, and we cannot have any idea what we're talking about. Can't. But on the other hand, God creates the world, and he did give us the Torah, and that is his will. And God does care about each and every person, and God does provide for us. So this is relevant to us. We're sort of like the center of attraction over here, each human being, and especially each Jew. So we're saying that God comes and he takes every single Jew by his hand, but that God does that's like a very, very sort of a limited revelation of godliness. Even though as Yeder Yin, that every Jew will design in Nachan Golas, that all the other Jews will be in exile. Let me say this again. The Rebbe is Shaykh as the Hora, this little, right, that's right, yeah. Moshiach, which is not the case. The Geula, the future redemption from Bechinas Iker Shechina, when it says that God himself wrote for himself that he's going to go out of exile, as was is Hecher, this is higher from any divisions, as wird sein erst Dach done, wird alle Yidden then nigal werden. All of the Jews, this will be only when all of the Jews are redeemed. Okay, so again, when God limits himself, so to speak, and he articulates himself, I like that word, articulates himself, so that it comes to each and every Jew individually. And God that appears to every Jew. One person has a big miracle with money, another person has a big miracle with health, another person has a big miracle with children, another person has a big miracle with friends, with this. Everybody has their own, with the sickness, with it. Everyone has their own thing, good things. And that people all of a sudden will start to realize, wow, God really is good. God really is helping me. He's really helping. Just take an example right now. Our enemy has rained down 30,000 missiles on us and has done almost no damage. This has had an effect on some people. Some people see this is a big miracle, right? Some people, there's all the soldiers, the Jewish soldiers that they're in this and they see big miracles, amazing miracles, right, happening to them, saving them. Totally non-religious, anti-religious Jews. They go in and they come out and they're wearing tzitzis and they have a kippah. They're saying, I'm a Jew. A Jew can't. I'm a not religious Jew. A not religious Jew can't keep all the Torah. Right? A non-religious Jew can't keep Shabbos. What's forbidden for me to keep Shabbos, to put on tefillin every day, to put a kippah? I'm not religious. I'm not. Why are you doing it? I saw big miracles from God. I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. It'll happen naturally. Each person according to his personality. Each person according to his personality. But the main essence of godliness, that's the individual ray of godliness. But the essence of godliness will always be in exile until all of the Jews go out. Rashi, like Rashi says, says, when the Jews are redeemed, that's when God set redemption for himself. As the Geula la'atzmo, the redemption itself, vetzayin kishenigalim, will be only when all of the Jews got up, then all the Yidden, all of the Jews are roisleisen, are taken out of exile. That God will come with them, like we said before in chapter 5. So God, in other words, individually will make every single Jew wake up and start to be Jewish and start to act like the children of God, the servants of God, the wife of God, the soldiers of God, every single Jew individually on his own. And it won't be because of religion, it'll be because of the truth. People will just see that that's the fact. But because everybody's personality is different, everyone's experiences are different, you have to talk to everybody in an individual way. So this will wake up every Jew individually. But until it happens to the last Jew, I mean, I can just imagine, I'm just thinking to myself, right? All the Jews are out in all Israel, and everybody's saying, hey, God, what are you waiting for? It says, listen, there's this old lady in whatever is Madagascar, and she's not, what are you talking about? She's this lady. Who is the lady? Look at her. She doesn't look Jewish. She's not Jewish. What are you talking about? Right? She's just a lady. She's totally black. She has nothing connected to this. No, it ends up that her great-great-grandmother was Jewish. And she married the ambassador from Madagascar or something like that. And then her daughter, who was a Jew, also married a person from whatever it is, from Guinea, whatever, and it doesn't look Jewish, doesn't act Jewish, doesn't even know she's Jewish. And God says, we're waiting for her. But all the Jewish people, like the stars in the heavens, millions of Jewish people, they're waiting for one lady. Says, what's going on? What are you knocking at my door for? You have to be do tshuva. What do you mean do tshuva? What are we supposed to do? You're a Jew. I'm not a Jew. My mother wasn't a Jew. This is, oh yeah, look at this. I'm a Jew. Whoa. All of a sudden, the person wakes up. We saw that happen in Russia. There was a lot of people in Russia that they didn't know they were Jews. As soon as they found they were Jews, there's a lot of them, they said, I want a circumcision. Men 67 years old, right? They didn't even know they were Jewish. All of a sudden woke up this insanity inside of themselves. Oh, I'm a Jew. What does is that's what Rashi is hinting at over here. What this is, when the Jews are redeemed, God, then he set a redemption for himself. At first glance, we can say that the redemption from Jews, vedoch zen as is durach Hashem. When the Jews get redeemed, then everyone can see that God is revealed. God goes out even with the first Jew. Come forth, like it says in many places. Unvi Rashi, but like Rashi himself says, that God himself, and they said he himself really will hold on to the hand of each Jew. So if so, God must be out. Why does it depend on that last Jewish lady, whatever, that she's sitting in, Madagascar or something like that, that she has to do tshuva? She doesn't even know she's Jewish. That depends on God revealing himself. Why? God personally took all the Jews out. He was obviously revealed before. Says, no, that's nothing compared to what's going to be when all the Jews are redeemed. As for vos zok there, why does it have to say only when they are redeemed, then God will be revealed himself? It doesn't say, and when God redeems them, he was faced as ervad nigal veren keilu b'derech mamela. It says when they are redeemed, it's like sort of like it happens automatically. God will be redeemed. It's not like he redeems himself. He goes out of exile himself. So what's going on over there? Is it an automatic? That's the ancient question, right? God promises that the Moshiach will come. Maimonides says, and that for sure Moshiach is going to come. It's one of the 13 principles of faith. So if he's sure he's going to come, so it means we don't have any say in it. For sure he's going to come. He says, no, it depends on you. So if it depends on me, then he's not going to come for sure, because there's going to be people that, so what's the explanation is like this. As the Bria vi zi gate dorach shem Elohim, the creation of the world as it is in the name Elohim, is Bora Elohim, that God created it. God created, but from who, that God himself is concealed and hidden. It says, Hu tziva v'nivru, the world God commanded, and the world was created, as though God, so to speak, didn't create it himself. We don't see God's hand directly in the creation. We don't even know what it means. How can it be God is creating me? Anyway, I don't understand what that means. But it's true. So God hid himself. Is in dem Madrig, in that level, is Farbunda, which is connected with every single Jew individually, each and every person in his place. This comes by means of God, so to speak, his hand. There, we can see that God is the one that's holding on, which is not the case in when God is redeemed himself. This is talking about God's essence. And God's essence is something which is totally incomprehensible. It's even sort of blasphemy to say that it's incomprehensible, as though you might be able to understand it. This is only when all of the Jews go out of exile, all of them, then there is going to be some sort of a revelation of the essence of godliness, which is totally outside of anything we can imagine in creation. Agula, the Chol Yisrael, then mitzad der madrega, and that level, when all the Jews are redeemed, all the Jews got it, that's in nigalim, then it'll be automatic in an ofen from ki'ilu b'derech lemela. Then all of a sudden, like automatically, will be this amazing revelation of the essence of God. I don't know if you can say this, if this is a good example, but I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say a father, he works with his son, that his son should be a good, violinist. His father was a violinist, so his father works with his son, and he's working with him every day. Every day shows him how to put his fingers and how to hold the bow and how to do this and how to do that. And every day is with his son, right? And then his son makes an appearance, right, on this, and he comes down, and everyone's clapping. And afterwards, he comes down. How did I do, Dad? And his father, all of a sudden, up to now, his father's been very mechanical and very practical, and he's been teaching him, and he's been showing him love, right? Every day, he gives him a little kiss on the head. He gets this shit, he plays, and he says, "How did I do, Dad?" And his father just bursts out crying, weeping. "My son, I love you so much. I love you." Not because of what he did. Even if he would have failed. Let's say he went out on the stage and he messed up everything. And he came down. Why, my father's going to be really angry at me. He comes down and his father says, "My son, I love you. You're so great. You're so brave. You went up and held you have." He saw some sort of a love which does not depend on anything else. And it came out automatically. It's like God's essence. The same thing is going to be with the Jewish people. When the Jewish people, God gathers them one at a time. So he does it automatically. The father is teaching his son to play the violin. But when all of them are all together, then it arouses something in the essence of God will be revealed in a way which is totally incomprehensible. It has nothing to do with anything we've seen. True reality will be revealed. No, another thing is that, so that's what it means that God will be. It says not that he will redeem himself. It says will be redeemed, like automatic. It'll be an automatic, something from the essence of God will be revealed. Again, you just have to remember constantly that we're talking about God over here. So we really don't know what we're talking about. It's impossible to understand what we're talking about. But on the other hand, God is creating us, right? And so we have a little bit of an idea what we are, right? Well, a little bit, even though that's also a miracle. If you look into it, a little bit how the eye exactly works and it corresponds with the brain and there's what is consciousness, that's also a pretty big miracle. But you can misunderstand it. You can make up all sorts of ideas, about how that works. But with the essence of God, you can't make up anything. That can only be grasped by faith. Logic cannot bring you to understand that there's God. You can understand that there's some sort of a prime mover or something like that. But here the Rebbe is saying that's the way it is now. But in the time of the redemption, then all of mankind will act in a way which is truth, which is above understanding. And everyone will see that the laws of nature and the laws of they're all miracles. That the fact that man can figure out anything in the world is an amazing gift from God. And that God wants us to use things that can't create airplanes unless you know something about aerodynamics. You can't just say, well, I believe in the Lord, and therefore, I'm going to sit on a board and I'm going to fly. There were people that did that. It says there were a lot of people that did it and it didn't work. But this says that the Baba Sali, the Rebbe Yaakov Abu Chotzera, that he sat on it was also called Baba Sali, I think. Anyway, he sat on a carpet and he flew to Eretz Yisrael. That's what it says. On a flying carpet. So I guess it says that even the Bilam also did it. He flew in the air, was able to fly in the air. So you can see that there are spiritual forces at work, but you don't rely on them. Don't rely on them. Somebody sells you a ticket on a carpet, don't buy it, no matter how cheap it is, because you have to know aerodynamics to make up an airplane work, right? But it's all big miracles. Everything is miracles. So if it's miracles, what do you have to know science for? That's part of the miracles. God wants us to do it on His own. And the whole point revolves around the Jewish people. When the Jewish people are redeemed, all of them together, then there's going to be a revelation of truth that's going to make everyone's life tremendously meaningful, tremendously dynamic. Everyone. And also another thing is hinted also what Rashi says over here, even though as there v'nigalim hakasuv geula, that's what says that God set redemption for Himself. This is after is completed and grabs everybody's hand, every single Jew, when they're all taken out of Egypt, and when they're all taken out of the exile. The last Jew, then God reveals Himself, His essence. But from Desvegen, nevertheless, what does Rashi say previously as this idea of redeeming the Jews is Ersh Darnach is only after bringt Ochas Biyadov, that God grabs the hands. Why? Well, the Geula, because the redemption of all of the Jews, Zay Klal Yisrael, Zay is the sea, but this is the reason why was vet bringen, which will bring that God will hold the hand of every single Jew. Because God, the Jews were put into exile, and in order to redeem them, this is the reason why God comes and grabs the hand of every Jew and takes them out. When Dermit get Rashi, therefore Rashi comes out with a teaching in a serving God. The Shas a Yid in the time when a Jew, Vil Reisgen, wants to go out from Zion Eingenem, from his own exile. Let's say you're trapped in your own thoughts and your own habits, in your own bad character. You have a bad temper. You get depressed, whatever it is. You're trapped in exile. You're lazy. You run after your desires all the time. You're full of lust and all sorts of crazy stuff that just does. You get addicted and those. How do you get out of it? Darfur is in. You have to see un men call untan. I'm sorry, I didn't see that's a tet. Untan, and do everything bo, which depends on him, as alle Yidden Zolan Ois Roiskin from Gullus. You have to do everything you can to help other Jews to go out of exile. You want to go out yourself from your problems, help somebody else. Can er doch tracht, and a person can think by himself. As yed or yed that every single Jew. Doch bataklis ashiflus, every Jew is very low. Biz er steht by noch ben Gullus. A person could think, I have to worry about myself. I'm like Noah. I'm going to build my own little ark, and I'm going to take myself and my family. Anybody else wants to join me, you can join me, but it's not my problem. When air is betachlis amayla, me and myself, I've elevated myself. I've gone out from the riffraff, from let them die in the flood. Air is showing great. I'm already ready for the future redemption. Heint for vos sein, the geula sein verbunden. What is the redemption? His, depending on somebody else. What do we say? God will only be redeemed when all the Jews go out. A person could say, listen, God took my hand. He took me out of exile. That's good enough. Right? I'm out. I'm free. Someone wants to join with me 100%. Zokta, but the pasuk, the sentence says immediately, no, as afilu der nitzavim, from Roshechem, even those people, that's how this week's Torah portion is, nitzavim, even those people who are standing, the tops of the Jewish people, they can come. This can only come when will the Jewish people be standing in the future redemption. The greatest, the highest, the wisest, the purest Jews, how can they be standing? Can come in Davka only after Atem Nitzavim Ayom Kulchem, all of you. Only when all of the Jews come to their senses, all of the Jews, even the last, lowest, whatever it is, confused Jew in the world, only when that Jew comes to his senses can I truly be out of my exile. Vos is kulchem. What does it mean? Was in kulchem, the word all of you, all the Jews. This means including even the chotev etzecha v'shoev mechel, even what's they call the lowest type of Jew. Jews that are sitting in prison, Jews that did terrible things. Jews that you wouldn't want to let them into your house. Who knows what they would do? And that Jew you have to worry about also. You have to worry about that Jew that he'll change his deeds, change his actions. When B'shas men gate mit them say to when your person goes in this order, namely what? That I can't think only about myself. I have to free myself, I have to worry. But my freedom depends on that of everybody else, every single Jew. Is that if you go in this way, this hatman, the havtacha, then you have the promise as atem nitzavim yom, you are standing today. This is Yom Adin Rabbah. It says today means the day of Rosh Hashanah. As men is nitzavim, we can be certain that this Rosh Hashanah we will be standing, and we will win the court case. We will come out exonerated. And not just exonerated, but rich, right? There was a question in, let's say, inheritance. You don't know if it went to the state or to you. We're going to come out, it's going to come to us. On men bakumt, a kativa, we will get a kativa v'chatim tova will be written and sealed good for a good new year and a sweet new year, including all sweet means you feel it. It'll be a good new year with a year of redemption. This year Moshiach will come as vet zayin v'shav Hashem Elokecha et shavutcha. That God will return together with all of the Jews. We will see and feel all these things we're talking about. As the Eibishter Elaine, the God himself, vet arois nemen will take out from every single Jew. Every single Jew. Atem to luktu, you will be gathered up. Echad achad b'nei Israel, one at a time. It's a prophecy from Isaiah, Bekorov Mamash, immediately now with the Rebbe, Melech Moshiach, at our head. How this is going to be, I don't know. But that it is going to be, I do know for sure. Now let's do the Likuti Torah.